for the schools? If not, do we just have the structures there as STEM school, but we are doing whatever everyone is doing? What makes the difference over there? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those questions. I think we tried to get some answers, but I'm sure, Mr. Sogbaji, Dr. Sogbaji will try to clarify that. That was okay. That's hand. Is here.
So I would like to thank the panelists for their speech. So my question is addressed to Mrs. Doris.
Doris, yes.
Yes, please. Miss Doris, not Mrs., I'm sorry. When I was listening to you, at some point you were mentioning that, okay, like everywhere you go, you are among the, maybe the can I say that there are, sorry for because...
She's the only woman in the room.
Yeah, like the only woman in the room and so on. And then as you have a position of like, as a project coordinator, and then you have a possibility to be part on the decision-making process, what are you doing personally to make sure that this kind of, like, that changes may beginning to show up? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question as well. There was a third hand. Oh, no. Okay, yes, it was you I missed. Apologies. Okay, so then I'm going to have to edit the number of questions from 3 to 4 because I know that's you. There was another hand here. Please show. Okay, great. So I don't miss you. You want me to edit it to 5? Okay. I'll make one last exception because it's a gender summit.
Thank you. My name is Judith from GNPC.
Right.
Yes, so I've been listening to the panelists and even from the ministers, and I have to commend Ghana from starting from the clean cooking and all that. My question is, energy transition is not just centered around cooking. What is the ministry doing?
Please show appreciation. If you think it's a very solid point, there's no problem at all.
The conversation even starting from cooking is actually marginalizing the women from being a part of the policy makers. We have carbon capture and storage, we have green hydro. There are several opportunities in energy transition. What is the government intentionally doing about it? And with respect to STEM, how are we like what the lady said, how are we even structuring the courses? Are we saying the government is appointing about 10 women to go and train them in carbon capture and storage? Are we saying government has appointed 20 people to train them in carbon trading, marketing? What is the government really doing intentionally doing about it? As we heard here, the women are more than the men. Meanwhile, most of the policy implementers are men. So this, as we are conversating about the same thing, trying to put our point together, it usually gets nowhere. I was actually sad when I got here and I saw plenty of women. Where are the men? The policy implementers are the men. Where are they? Do they even understand what gender parity is? These conversations have been going on for far too long. We talk about it, but nothing is being done about it.
Right.
It's always on paper that we are including the women.
Right.
Where are the women? Thank you.
Thank you very much for those reflections. Because I'm here, let me take you.
It's related to what she said.
It's related to what she said, so we're good. Thank you for re-editing back to 4. So let me take the final question. And Dr. Sogbaji, clearly you see you have caused us problems.
My name is Judith Opongteria. I'm an executive member of the Women in Energy. I thank the panelists for the enlightening they've given us this morning and afternoon. I want to draw attention to the ECOWAS policy on gender mainstreaming. One of the strategic objectives, especially I think their third strategic objective, is that by 2020, at least 25% of women in the energy workforce should be in technical fields and decision-making positions. We haven't arrived at that. The next is that by 2025, there should be gender parity, 50-50. So, I want to know what the ministry, the mother ministry, that's Ministry of Energy, is doing to ensure that the agencies are intentionally putting in place strategies and capacity building to bring the women in the workforce to at least the 2020 objective. If we can go further, let's have at least 25% in decision-making positions and in technical fields, and then we can have a better conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You want to appreciate, it's fine. It's an interesting question. And so we can go back to the panel and get some answers. Clearly, the submissions of Madame Sarah and Dr. Sobaji, including Doris, have set us up for more questions from the audience. So before I let you react, let me go to Madam Sarah. You had a number of questions. One, the energy transition about cooking. I know you are doing clean cooking, but do you align with that? What things do you think ought to be done? There are questions around, the curriculum that has been developed. Is this something that, clean cooking, even though you are not government, you do a lot of policy engagement with that. So where are the gray areas, the questions that you've seen that you would like to sort of react or respond to?
All right, thank you. The question on why clean cooking is a big issue is because of the context in which we are. When you look at Ghana, maybe in Accra, we are using Accra and some other parts of the regions the women may be using clean technologies. But when you go to the rural areas, you find a lot of women using technologies that are not helping their health. And if you don't use the right technology, there are a lot of health issues related to the cooking technologies you use. And I mean, there are a lot of studies that GACO has done. Maybe you have to come to GACO and get some of these reports. Cooking is killing people in Ghana and Africa because of the technology and the fuels that they are using. Just this year, from January to May, I did a study for the World Bank on the Ghana School Feeding Program. And I was amazed that in this era, majority of the caterers are using firewood. Majority of them are using firewood. And when you go to some of the kitchens, you see that the place is very black. And experts say that the way you see the walls black, that's what is happening in the woman's internal, the internal organs are also depicting that. It's also, what the black you see is also affecting what you got, the internal, the lungs and all that. So because of that, that is why cooking has become a very big issue for Ghana now. Why should women die as a result of the cooking technologies that they are using? Women should not die as a result of that. In addition to that, when you use the right technology, like some of us in Accra, where we use the electric stoves, the LPG and all that, you don't spend time go look for firewood. But when you go to some of the rural areas, they spend close to 2 hours, 3 hours looking for firewood. The girl child can use the time to do some studies. The women in the rural areas can use that to engage themselves into some productive activity. So cooking is a very big issue. And I think that Ghana should continue to talk about clean cooking. So we ensure that every woman in Ghana is using a clean technology and also a cleaner fuel.
Right.
Thank you very much. On the curriculum, the issue of the curriculum, since we started talking about clean cooking, before then, Ghana didn't have anything on clean cooking in our curriculum. But as I speak now at the basic level, we have issues on clean cooking captured in our curriculum. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's good to hear. And I'll go to you, Dr. Charles Gyamfi.
Hi, my name is Linda, GNPC. I don't think we are talking about what Madam is talking about. I think what Judy is more about is the fact that energy transition is not just about cooking.
Not just about, yes.
And because Ghana has, over the years, I don't know how many years now, we've been going on about clean cooking for the underprivileged and all that. CSIR has developed several technologies in that respect. The point is that we latch onto the latest, right? And then that becomes the mantra we are waving. No, clean cooking, in fact, we don't need energy transition to make us aware of all the impacts and the benefits of clean cooking. So let's not make the little strides we've made in this, let's not sing the praises as if we've been doing something. No, the point is coal, charcoal and all that. We've talked about this till the cows come home. The energy, the upstream, partners. We've made several CSIR initiatives for fish smoking and all that, cooking stoves, all that. Right, we are not talking about that. That's been going on irrespective of energy transition. What we are referring to is the fact that we are latching on to energy transition to make anything about cooking, as if energy transition hadn't turned up, we wouldn't be talking about cooking. And it's not about cooking, it's about other things, where energy transition and gender go hand in hand. And I think that's what we are trying to drive at. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for those reflections. And I think that perhaps I asked a question on further clarification of what, the clean cooking, initiative really has been doing and why that is taking a center stage of, some of the discussions we are having around energy transition. But it's also important to acknowledge that, some of those issues that you have identified equally touch on what I think the other panel members were going to clarify, because that falls within, the scope of their work. And so we're just going to get that. And so, Dr. Gyamfi, I was coming to you. So there were questions around, there were questions around, energy transition, for example. I mean, if you had questions, what is your reaction to that? And then from you, maybe I'll go to Doris. There was a specific question that was directed, at you, what you're doing in your personal capacity. And then Dr. Sobwaji, why is it that we don't know what government does on issues of funding and on issues of science, technology, and engineering, whether or not we are really redesigning the curriculum? If you can all do this for me in 2 minutes, 2 minutes. It's impossible to, but attempt to.
Okay, let's try that. So I think energy transition is broad, and we have a lot of angles that we can go. One can talk about carbon capture, one can talk about renewable energy integration, and then we cannot really belittle the impact of clean cooking. In fact, we did an assessment of net zero and realized that clean cooking could actually push us to net zero at a very faster rate, even more than renewable energy integration, looking at the impact of the forestry and the tree felling and everything that we have on our environment and so on and so forth. So that cannot be an understatement within the energy transition conversation. But when you also bring out the need for other technologies, the CCUS and all of these things, I think that then the responsibility of us as stakeholders becomes very important, especially even within the face of a national oil company like GNPC, right? The question is, within this entire space of energy transition, what is the corporation also thinking around ensuring that, is it transitioning to perhaps an energy company where it is also looking at taking advantage of the current wave of the transition, right? So it is not just a ministry's conversation, it's not just a clean cooking conversation, but it is also an interagency and intersectoral conversation where everybody needs to bring its acts together. And I would really be happy to see what the national oil company is also thinking around the wave of energy transition, not just as a CSR activity, but also as part of its core mandate to transition to an energy company, and how it can also mainstream women activism within the entire space. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Doris?
Thank you, Patrick. I was thinking you were never coming back here. But I want to clap for the lady who asked the question on clean cooking again. I'm clapping for you in my head, because I had written it right here that, yes, clean cooking is relevant. 3.8 million deaths that would result, according to the UN, a bigger conversation I think we need to be having. And I wrote it here because I know you're not going to come back to me again. I have a big proposition in terms of collaboration, because I have been with AIMS, and I'm with the energy sector, basically. And the beauty of being with AIMS is I met most of your students that were mathematical scientists, statisticians, economists. I'm an economist by profession, really. My education is economics, but I'm in energy. What I noticed in trying to talk to them in terms of mentoring, trying to get them to come into this space, is that most of them felt they didn't have a place in this space. They thought their subjects that they are learned were not energy related. But to run models, you need economists. Run models, statisticians, you need them. So I am looking at where AIMS and the collaboration between AIMS and Energy Ministry in terms of, on the back of the energy transition plan, would be able to move us into that sector where we bring the people that are relevant in terms of those who know their job, know it, who are women. Because he was just tooting the horn about how I am the one leading their e-mobility framework in Ghana, but I can't say of mine. In Ghana, again, to the University of Ghana Business School, I was just there yesterday to give them their guest speech. I do the same thing there. And I'm actually putting 2 people together right now just to do a bicycle business in terms of bamboo bikes and trying to make money out of it. But basically, those are personal ways. To be a mentor is something I take personally because it took mentors to bring me here. It took mentors, but it took my decision to actually want to be here to finally. So there are those that you mentor that after a while they tell you, no, the field is getting too technical. I just want to be here. We have to respect that part too and let them be there. So mentoring is going really good and trying to get the conversation in terms of policy, in terms of how we sit at the table and make decisions, being women, is one of the big things. Because without that, where will it trickle down? We first need to do that and then have it trickle down to those that will benefit from it.
Hold the remaining thoughts for me. I know that, after the conversation, you're still going to be around. People can have private, questions, sessions, and get to learn a lot more what you're doing personally. Let me go to Dr. Sogbaji. And you are perhaps the last person that speaks, and then we wrap up the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Now, with the question from GACO and funding, yes, you hear GIZ,